It started somewhere around 1879, and Wilhelm Wundt is considered to be the father of psychology with his first experimental laboratory in Germany. And it has its beginnings from philosophy. So it is no wonder that philosophy, spirituality, psychology are intensely interrelated.
I have had the opportunity to study the Maslow's
Hmm.
hierarchy of needs
Hmm.
in a
Hmm.
different context. We find, okay, how does what appeals to a consumer,
Hmm.
and where is our target consumer? How do you psychologically profile them,
Correct.
and so on. But having said that, I think what is very interesting to me was this stage of transcendence that has been recognized by again a person who's scientifically researched into it.
The Bhagavad Gita, for me, the Bhagavad Gita is the book of life. And Sri Krishna is the Adi Guru. I mean, he is the ultimate psychologist, counselor, what you can, respectfully call him with all due reverence. And if you look at that book itself, Bhagavad Gita, you'll see that so much of what we are experiencing today, what Arjuna was, experiencing, is on similar lines. So, and how beautifully Sri Krishna has addressed that and, made him realize in numerous ways. So, that is what I think is the beauty of our heritage, our culture. And we need to go back and, it's like searching for treasures, and there's so much wealth in our own backyard.
So, ma'am, you mentioned about gratitude and journaling it. And I'm reminded of a beautiful sentence by Srimad Madhwacharya again, where he says that, don't ask, what did you get out of praying? The very fact that you are able to pray itself is the fruit. You are able to complete your prayers to your heart's content and get that sense of fulfillment itself is such a big thing. I mean, that itself is a privilege now for somebody to be able to sit quietly and pray. So, if you have been able to do that successfully, that itself is success. That the real nature of a person is never visible to the naked eye.
Correct, correct.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ataha Thoughtcast series. In this particular episode, we're going to be focusing on something which is very, very important to all of us, which is the confluence of spirituality as well as mental health. And we have with us someone very illustrious in this field to help us cope up with both these aspects. And how do we sort of integrate? How do we differentiate between these two things, which is the central focus of the Ataha movement itself? So I have with me Dr. Sulata Shenoy, who is an illustrious counselor. She comes from a very rich pedigree of about 35 years, having worked in various health institutions, providing counseling help to people who are seeking this under various contexts. She is also focused specifically on children with different abilities and who need help to be able to cope up with the challenges that they are born with sometimes, or they have acquired it over their lifetime. And so this is not Dr. Sulata Shenoy's first meeting with us. She has graced two other occasions of Ataha Madhwacharya for the youth. She was there at the 100th workshop that was being conducted by Ataha, as well as she conducted an exclusive session on parenting. With these words, I would like to welcome Dr. Sulata Shenoy.
Namaskara. Namaskara, all the viewers. Thank you for having me on your show. It's an honor. And first, I'd like to discuss something about what we know about psychology and spirituality. Because I think the topic today would be how one is related to the other. So, today we are living in an increasingly fragmented world, sorry to say. And we have, all these topics coming in different areas and seen as discrete or different kind of skills and abilities. So this interconnectedness between all these areas, domains, is something that we have to recognize when we talk of health, whether it is physical health, mental health, or spirituality. Psychology as a discipline and as a science, which has been in force for more than 100 years, it's a relatively new science, I would say. It started somewhere around 1879, and Wilhelm Wundt is considered to be the father of psychology with his first experimental laboratory in Germany. And it has its beginnings from philosophy. So it is no wonder that philosophy, spirituality, psychology are intensely interrelated. So from then on, psychological thought and theories began to be increasingly focusing on what is observable, what is recordable, and what is quantifiable. So there was structuralism, there was functionalism, experimental psychology, and all these centering more on what is happening inside an individual and what one is able to state as and also to record and as so we wanted to prove probably that this is a science in itself and not something that is esoteric or unscientific. Then came Sigmund Freud, and he brought in a whole lot of concepts which have to do with the conscious, the unconscious, and defense mechanisms, and how we behave, how we think, and a lot of concepts which contributed a lot to the richness of psychology, apart from being centered only on few observable sensations or behaviors. And later on, we had, after Sigmund Freud, we had what is known as the rise of behaviorism. So, behaviorism under first Pavlov, with his famous, dogs who were conditioned to salivate. So, everybody is aware of that. And then Watson, who brought in this conditioned response to fear. So, you associate something and you bring in something at the same time, so that temporal connection and that physical connection makes you fear the other object as well. So that is how he explained much of our fears, anxieties are learned and can be unlearned. Then another important behaviorist, Skinner, he came along and he said that we can shape an individual. Right. We can do whatever we want with the individual's mind and behaviors, provided we give the right environmental inputs. So this kind of stretched this whole paradigm of this whole dynamics of behaviorism to an extreme extent. And where he said that if you give me two children, I'm pretty sure I can end up making one a thief and one a policeman, just by altering the circumstances. Right. So we completely shifted from the internal to the external. And then we had another twist in the story of psychology, with the rise of humanism, what you call, okay, and Carl Rogers, and brought in this concept of therapeutic alliance, the importance of interconnectedness among people. And then you had Abraham Maslow. I want to dwell a little bit on Maslow with your permission, Sundar.
Please.
Yeah, so Maslow's hierarchy of needs fit in very well with what we are discussing today. Because he started off with, we must have our basic needs. Okay, the basic needs come first, that is hunger, thirst, and need for shelter, etc., which I think was very important during the war days, World War days, and there was a lot of scarcity of food. So he said, first we have to address that, then we have to address safety needs, okay, then the social needs, okay, and then the psychological needs of, particularly he stressed on self-esteem. So he was very important in giving prominence to this idea of the self and the self-identity, self-concept. And he said that if we have, and he put it as tiers, okay, tiers one above the other, and he said that ultimately on top, if you have the potential for self-actualization, then you can say that your life has been worthwhile or meaningful. And later on, which is not a very well-known fact, he added this concept of transcendence. Maslow himself. So he said that above self-actualization is transcendence. And this is where I think the spirituality or the spiritual, thought processes began to be incorporated in psychology. So you have the rise of phenomenologic, theories, and which dwelt more on us seeing external events as more as phenomena rather than objects. And then you had neuro-linguistic programming, which said that each person has their own internal map. So the way you look at the world and the way I look at the world will be completely different, to our surprise. Okay, because we think that what we see and what we know is exactly what is going on inside the other person's mind. So then there were like methods, particularly for therapy, on how to change these false or dysfunctional perceptions and make the person more functional. And I think empowerment came in at that point of time with all these theories. And then you had what is called flow theory, which is even now widely discussed and researched, particularly in sports and creative activities. And flow means that it is like you lose yourself in what is going on. So you get immersed, you get engrossed, and you lose that sense of self. So that is a flow. So in that sense, psychologists began to research like what is the idea behind flow and what is the benefits of flow, and what is called the psychological capital, psycap. Okay, so all these theories are maybe later theories, and therefore then we psychologists began to incorporate not only like changing behaviors, but also thinking of how you can improve the quality of life for the person. And that is where I think Seligman's theory of psychological well-being, also widely discussed and was taken up by WHO, that mental health, particularly they talked of mental health, is not only absence of disease, which we were so far focusing upon, the psychopathology, the disorders, the depressions, the anxieties, and the dysfunctional behaviors, addictions, etc. But it should have the element of psychological well-being.
Right.
So positive psychology came into existence.
Right.
And it has stayed, fortunately. So we are, I think, as psychologists, quite uniquely positioned to embrace spirituality now, along with what we know about psychological processes, thought processes, emotions, feelings, behaviors, relationships, and bring in this concept of spirituality without having to hesitate. See, for me, I think the main hesitation of psychologists to embrace spirituality has always been that you may not be considered scientific. Yeah, or where is the proof, or where is the research, and slowly with the rise of technology, okay, we had various neuroimaging studies, and we have a lot of other psychological physiological and anatomical and behavioral parameters and methods of assessing them accurately, which show that there is a lot of benefit of spirituality on human brain and individual functioning.
Excellent, ma'am. I mean, when you were actually narrating this, I can't help but narrate it and understand it in the context of philosophy as well. Like psychology as a field has evolved, so has the world of philosophy. There are so many different forms of philosophy that we hear. Sometimes they may look like they are at loggerheads with each other, but they seem to be more of an evolution in my mind. And I think all of us will get a combination of these different schools of philosophy in our mind. It will never be one thing as opposed to the other. So similarly, in a psychological practice, also there could be that whatever we are seeing as a current practice is a culmination of so many different types of approaches that one can take. One thing which also struck me as a marketer myself, I have had the opportunity to study the Maslow's hierarchy of needs in a different context. We find, okay, how does what appeals to a consumer and where is our target consumer? How do you psychologically profile them and so on? But having said that, I think what is very interesting to me was this stage of transcendence that has been recognized by again a person who's scientifically researched into it. And increasingly, companies are also coming to the similar factor that consumers have a transcendental need which is above all the other needs that we have. People seem to have everything, all the other needs that you talked about, yet are experiencing a sense of void within us. In fact, we did a podcast on the topic of how people are feeling lonely and how they have a void in their mind. So I think you brought out this aspect of how psychologists are looking at the topic of spirituality. So one thing is, from your own experiences, what are some of the biggest challenges that your patients come to you with in the current scenario?
Correct. So I agree with what you say, and psychologists also have begun to move beyond narrow boundaries of, earlier you would have a Rogerian therapist and you would have a Freudian therapist and so on and so forth, and we have begun now to embrace all these schools of thought and try to fit in with the modern needs. And I feel that today we are living in what is called the age of anxiety, depression, and aggression and dysfunctional thinking. So, all these we can see in our day to day lives itself. Okay, and it's not just due to them being highlighted or talked about, but there is a very real escalation in these behaviors, which I think was not there before, maybe due to number of factors. We are not very sure about it. But one thing is that unless we address these as soon as possible, and the only way to address that is to bring in an element of spirituality into it. Because my own journey with spirituality is pretty late and very sporadic and random, and what I've picked up from various readings and hearings. And so whenever I felt that there is something beyond what I can understand about a client, I realized that all of this has been addressed thousands of years ago in our very own scriptures, epics, the Bhagavad Gita. For me, the Bhagavad Gita is the book of life. And Sri Krishna is the Adi Guru. I mean, he is the ultimate psychologist, counselor, what you can, respectfully call him with all due reverence. And if you look at that book itself, Bhagavad Gita, you'll see that so much of what we are experiencing today, what Arjuna was, experiencing, is on similar lines. So, and how beautifully Sri Krishna has addressed that and, made him realize in numerous ways. So, that is what I think is the beauty of our heritage, our culture, and we need to go back and, it's like searching for treasures, and there's so much wealth in our own backyard. So, I feel we have to, make use of that. And this is where I think in any field, even if you take physical health, even if you take anything, you always, even marketing, as you said, unless you address this, people will always have that feeling of something is lacking or something maybe is not correct. When you this hits you like an aha moment,
Right.
like the awe, the wonder of it, and the beauty of how everything in nature has been so well aligned by the Almighty that all you need to do is align yourself, body, mind, thoughts, emotions, into what is actually needed. So, a little bit of whatever I understand, with your permission, I'd like to, just state.
Sure, sure.
So, this concept of, your dharma, Dharma not only beyond nature or your practice or religion, but also as your true calling, your true nature. Okay, that and the dharma, the gunas, okay, the rajas, the sattvic and the tamasic gunas, and the swabhavas. What is your, what in psychology we call it personality.
Right.
Correct. But this has been stated thousands of years back and we never knew about it. We never studied about it. And today, it's only today that few of us are realizing that all what we have studied has already been expressed and enunciated and described so beautifully earlier. And anyway, now it's never too late. And our ashramas, our stage in life, you align all of that, okay, with karma, what you need to do. And even in Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna, when Arjuna asks Krishna, okay, he tries to escape, as you know better than me, from this his duty of war. Sri Krishna, when he was giving his knowledge and empowering Arjuna, as you very well know, Arjuna tried to escape in many ways. He said first that he could not kill his kith and kin. Then he said this will lead me to a greater sin. And don't you think that if I just put down my weapons and I go and I do meditation as some of the sages are doing, that will bring me moksha. And what Sri Krishna tells him very categorically is that no, this is your dharma, okay, and this is exactly what you need to do, and you need not worry about incurring any sin on a part of on the part of your actions, because this is what it has been ordained. So have trust. So we need that leap of faith that this is what we are meant to do and this is how we have to do it, and then just do it. And he also talks about not clinging to the fruits of action. Correct. So what for us, most of the time we want to know like what is the benefit for us, okay, whether monetarily or otherwise, and then we will act. Okay, we rarely we do something just for the sake of doing it. And then Arjuna also says that don't you think that I should just accrue knowledge that is which is greater. Then Arjuna gives him the Brahma Vidya and the Karma Shastra.
Yes.
Correct. He says Yoga Shastra. He says that Yoga Shastra is karma. You have to do it. And you have to have the knowledge also. So both are important. So I think that is what we need to inculcate in our day-to-day lives also. We need to have the knowledge. We need to have a framework of spirituality. We need to have a theoretical backup. And then we can go ahead and live lives and enjoy it. See, our Shastras don't tell us to eschew enjoyment or not to have, the good things in life. It only tells you do that, but don't get attached to them.
Yes.
So this attachment is where the whole problem of depression, anxiety, dysfunction, addictions, all that comes into place.
Absolutely.
So once you understand like what we have been told for thousands of years, and dimly now we are being just aware of it, and once the full force of that spiritual knowledge is spread, I'm very sure that it will have a huge impact on mental health.
Right.
Already a lot of research has shown that through this neuroimaging and study of brain waves and the physiological parameters and neurotransmitters, so now we are able to assess all of that, shown that those who are spiritually inclined, they have definitely less of mental disorders and addictions and other things. And not only that, their brain functions at a much superior level.
Wow.
Okay, so they've studied that
Yes.
The alpha waves and the theta waves. Okay, so there is a reduction and there is an increase, and then you have it also releases more of serotonin and dopamine and melatonin, which is also important for bodily function and mental well-being. And also this PET scans and functional MRIs and all that have consistently shown that we don't need to prove them anymore. It has been there for last 20 years or so, and a lot of yogis and lot of gurus and lot of holy men have been studied, and consistently it shows that brain functioning is better, your attitude is better, you're more connected with life, more connected with people. In fact, it's not like you're withdrawn. You are there right in the middle of action. and yet you are able to function to your optimal state, and also for the wealth of and the progress of society. So it's not just a individual selfishly kind of, okay, I'm happy and seeking happiness for himself, but also spreading that and uplifting or evolving society itself into a better place, which I think much needed now. You'll agree, Sundar,
Yeah,
with
absolutely.
all the wars and this the terrible things that have happened. We need to have that in place, and which, who better than India, who better than Bharat to showcase to the world what we have, what we can offer, and who better than psychologists who can fill this gap of
Yes.
bringing solace, and that's part of our job, like counseling and giving therapy. So far we were sticking to very narrow therapeutic parameters. I wish and I hope that more psychologists will address this also, because I think this has been scientifically proved and it is so empowering. So there's no reason why we need not embrace spirituality in psychology, and there's no reason why we need not go back to our own heritage rather than look elsewhere.
Absolutely, ma'am. I'm reminded of one thing about how a spiritual person can also be, so elevated in his social interactions, and how the demeanor of that person is different. You've had the privilege of meeting Sri Vishvesha Teertha Swamiji.
Yes.
And so in the 100th workshop that we did for Madhwacharya for the youth, you were one of the speakers, and so was Swamiji as one of the chief guests. And he was very taken in by the fact that we had organized something on parenting. And if you see, one of the anecdotes that he narrated in his speech had to do with parenting and how parents are role models.
Yes.
And he also blessed you and everybody in the audience. There's one incident that happened which is very similar. Once I had Swamiji called me, and he told me that we have to do something for the youth, and he wanted some people from his organizations to come together and be able to do it. I believe he's been telling them for a very long time, but he could not see action. So he was very angry, I would say, or I would say very insistent that this has to get done. So we were called in at 11 in the night to share our experience about what we had done. And he said, tomorrow morning, please come over and tell me that all this has been actually actioned. So morning again, we met him at about 8 o'clock. Now, everybody who was there were people like us and the others who had got a tongue lash, the previous night. And they were all very sullen. Some of them were upset probably. But the Swamiji had a very different demeanor. He came out with cheerful and he looked at all of us and he said, why are you all like this? You did something which was not the best way. I corrected you as a leader of this organization, and we just have to correct ourselves. Last night, I have left that weight behind of my anger because I know that it's action now. It's over. Why are you carrying that burden on yourself? So it was such a, like you said, the aha moment for me, that how much of this burden that we unfortunately carry when there is no place and we don't really have to do that. Right. So one thing, coming back to that question, ma'am, which is that, in your sessions that you do, what are the common types of challenges that your audience or the patients come to you with? What would that be that you see commonly? Yeah, before I answer that, I must profusely thank you for inviting me for that program, and thereby getting blessings of Poojya Swamiji, which I consider one of the turning points in my life. And your organization is called the Turning Point. Yeah, and from then on, I started reading and also talking to you, and also trying to listen to various speakers. And so whatever little knowledge I have about spirituality has always is led me to believe that there is so much more we all need to know. And I'm just a novice in the field, and it has made a huge impact in my thinking, my lifestyle, and I try to bring it into my psychological practices also. Right. So when you see a patient, you don't really see that person with a disability, or see a person with
some kind of anger issues or depression or anxiety, though we are tuned to slot them or think of them as in that particular way. So you think of them more as somebody who's suffering something, and which they have come to you, which is actually like an honor for us, that somebody has approached us to help them, rather than think that I am the one who's going to give some kind of gift or solace to the person.
Right.
So that kind of, if you have that kind of attitude, humility, I believe, and also something which I also learned back from about our karmas. Earlier, I used to think that karma was only like something bad deeds, right? Like most of us used to believe karma is bad. Then I came to know that it's like it's so differentiated, and most of us what we are doing today. So even if today I'm doing something, okay, it is an effect of what has been done long back, okay, maybe my previous lives, and that is something I strongly believe in, that it is the sanchita karma is the accumulation of your past deeds, whether it's good, whether it's bad. And the other thing is that we have to let go of this judgmental thing of being good, bad, okay,
Yes.
and nice, not nice. So even if you see a rose, say for instance, you'll say, oh, it looks so nice, it smells so good. Not needed. Okay, that rose, that small wayside flower, they're all there as part of their own ways of being. And but every time we have this habit, I would say it's more of a mental habit that's cultivated over a long time, that we have to always evaluate, give judgment, pass a judgment, and then try to react. So what if we are able to completely look at something in a very non-judgmental way, in a very compassionate way, without having to think about what this person may think of me, or what will happen, or why did he do that. And once you realize that all of us are similar in our journeys, some of us are probably more advanced, some of us are more successful, some of us, but others are not. It's just that it's all a continuum.
Right.
And we cannot claim that we are better off, or we know more, or we have that kind of exclusive privileges or rights, which really we have not earned, I would say, just like somebody else has been deprived. So that gives, I mean, when you treat a person, a patient, with compassion and with understanding of what he or she needs, you'll find that a lot of times that first step we are taught in a psychological therapy is that you have to listen. Most of us talk too much, and we want to put forth our point of view, and so the listening is less, and then the patient just nods, yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes doctor, and then goes out with the same thoughts in his or her mind. So first we have to learn how to listen, so that listening itself sometimes is very therapeutic. You'll be surprised that some of them say, okay, I just talked to you and then I found so much clarity. So not necessarily I have done something. I've just listened. So which we can all do, whether we are psychologists or not psychologists, or in any other profession, and then making the other person feel valued.
Right.
Most of us look right through people, okay, they don't matter, and they can sense that very well, or that we are not giving them enough regard or anything. So this unconditional positive regard, which Carl Rogers talked about, and which is like mentioned long back, I mean thousands of years back in our own scriptures, means that you don't attach anything to that person. Unconditionally you accept. So that acceptance, and then you'll find that things, whether they are addictions, whether they are whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, whether it's stress, whether it's family relationship, whether it's, there's so many things that nowadays people. And I think that instead of looking each one separately, like this is depression, this is anxiety, sometimes it's amazing, like they're all so interconnected. So person is depressed, anxious, insecure, dysfunctional, addictive behaviors, interpersonal relationships are very poor. So it's all like mixed. So how will you say that, where you need to start? So you start from listening, you start from unconditional positive regard, and slowly you can tease out the different factors. And then we use our strategies as psychologists to address each of them.
Absolutely, ma'am.
Yeah.
So I'm reminded of a quotation by Sri Madhwacharya when he's writing the commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. He just says it like Naham karta hari karta. Tat puja karma chakilam.
Yes.
So I am not the doer.
Yes.
The only doer is God.
God. Correct.
And everything I do is a prayer to Him.
Yes.
Tat puja karma chakilam. Whatever I do in some form or the other is a service. If somebody looks at his life in this manner, I think there is no scope for any ego, any way in which we and any way we differentiate between the people, become extremely judgmental. Because one of the other thing that he talked about in the Gita is that the real nature of a person is never visible to the naked eye.
Correct.
So, but you have to transact. So you have to go by the person's behavior, but do not come to a conclusion of that person. The nature of that soul, if it was that clear, then I think we all would have been at a different level. That's what is called aproksha gnana. When he actually gets to know the nature of his own soul, and and is able to do that. The other thing that you talked about is, how do you sort of have that mutual respect? Because only respect begets respect to you. So there is a quotation in the Ramayana about how Sri Rama used to address people. And one common challenge that we find is whenever we go to an event, everybody looking at who's going to greet the other person. Why should I be the person who smiles? So Sri Rama has given us a beautiful template about how do you respect others. So he says smita purva bhashecha. That means he'll be the first one to smile and greet people, which will endear them to him. All the people there were well aware that he is none other than Purushottama. He is God himself. But that the distance he is able to cross and put his arms around people. So it is said that Dasharatha called everybody, and he said, and Dasharatha was a great king, very, very loved by his people. And he says, look, I have this thought that I should make Rama the king after me. He should be my successor. That's what I think. But all of you are, great people. Can you advise whether my decision would be right? So we call it autocracy, we call it dynastic rule, but see how much of democracy was there. So all of them, erupt with happiness. They say that you've been a great king, but your son is going to far outdo you. So Dasharatha makes, he has a humorous moment and he keeps quiet and he says, I think all of you are waiting for me to go. And he's of course delighted that he found such a great successor in Lord Rama himself. But these lessons that I have also had an opportunity to study coincide so much with your, what you have been talking about in your analysis of how psychology sort of works. And also, I think the other thing that you mentioned, which I heard from somebody, was how do you align your head, heart and the hand. I think that's a very subtle message that Bhagavad Gita is saying, giving us that, whatever is going on. And whenever there is a mismatch, I think that is where the challenges happens. Your head not being aligned with your heart and that not being aligned with your hands, which are symbolic of the actions that you do. So one thing coming back to this, ma'am, in your understanding and the way you have been guiding your patients, how do you, what are some of the practices that you think have, really helped people? So one thing you clearly alluded is somebody who is a spiritual person, his demeanor is different, his behavior is different. And I was so delighted to hear that the structure of their brain itself can be very different from somebody who's not is not spiritual. This has been, as I understand, proven. Now, from your perspective, what are some of the practices that we're going to be talking about? And for the purpose of this discussion and in very selfish ways, one big thing is about digital distractions that are happening. I think we will need 10 episodes of that from you because that's a hot topic. We definitely will address it in greater detail. But what are some of the other things that you would suggest as as ways that people can improve their mental health.
Yeah. So I think, as you said, how does one align the head, heart, and hand? Right. So it just needs, like, again, you have to go back to what you actually need to do. Okay. What is your duty? What is your intention? What are your resources? How do you want to go about it? And then you'll find that everything will fall in place. But again, we need, kala, the right time. You'll find that many times, like, you may be breaking your head so many times, but nothing happens. But the right time comes, and least effort, something happens. Okay. And then you need prayatna. Say kala, prayatna, and anugraha.
Right.
These three, if they are in alignment with your body, mind, your thoughts, your attitudes, your beliefs, your values, you'll find that the whole universe will align to what you are doing. So I don't think one needs to go, like, very much into, like, what is the how and why of it, and finding the kala is nothing. It's just like you have to wait sometimes patiently, wait for the right time, know when to give up, know when to persist. And prayatna, of course, it's a continuous. You have to do your duty, as Sri Krishna says, like, that is your duty. You have to perform it. So there's no shying away from that. And then anugraha. Without God's grace, I think nothing can be aligned. So you have to have that faith. Correct. You have to have that faith that this will happen. And then you'll find that you'll get the opportunities. People will suddenly come out of nowhere. You'll be able to do a lot of things you never imagined possible.
Right.
Coming to certain specific strategies. Okay, now since we are talking about psychological therapeutic strategies which are more relevant to today, we don't depend so much on psychoanalysis or Rogerian analysis nowadays, because one thing is that people's attention and their time is also very brief, so they need quick solutions. We are living in an age of they want, like, immediate quick solutions, which are very difficult in our field. It's not like you give some medicine and then immediately you find your headache gone or something. It takes some time. So one thing is that you have to have, we do spend a lot of time on, one is listening, secondly insight. Okay, insight oriented therapies. So no longer we believe that just by rearranging external or environmental factors, the person will change. All that has to happen within one's mind.
Yeah.
So even the most adverse situations, the most challenging of problems, you'll find that if you look on it as more like a puzzle, more, or an opportunity, you will be able to have that positive attitude to go forward. But if you think of it as an obstacle or something that, so it's a lot of insight oriented, what we call the cognitive behavioral emotive approach. So now it's like from behavior therapy, we came to cognitive behavior therapy, then we also add the emotional component, because all these, when these are aligned, then you'll find your thoughts, your actions, your behaviors, and your emotions. So far we have not been giving much of importance to emotions, feelings, but these drive a lot of our behaviors and our thinking and our attitudes. So we can change them, and we have to make in the interest of empowering our patients.
Right.
It's not like changing them just to make them follow our ways of thinking, but make them more able to deal with and to see for themselves what is. So one of the other things that we also use is a lot of gratitude practices, because the human mind has a tendency to focus only on negatives. So tell me, Sundar, if you are doing 10 things in a day, say 10 important things, and 9 of them go very well, and the one doesn't. So what does your mind dwell on constantly? The
Yes.
one thing that you so-called failed at. And then from childhood, we have been drilled with this concept of not to make mistakes, not to fail, okay, and not to disappoint others. And so we're constantly trying to, keep up with that image which we want others to see us. But whereas if we see, okay, mistakes, whatever you made, It's all part of growing up, part of learning. And you can make the patient see that, then you'll find that this grip of the mind, okay, which is more of a habit over negative events, will slowly loosen up, and you'll be able to make your patient see the many good things, the many positive things that are currently going on in his life. So gratitude practices, I think, is not very given a lot of importance, because we think it's just one of the way. But it's not just about saying thank you. Okay, it's by feeling that thankfulness, by feeling that gratefulness for being alive, for the every breath we take, for every good night's sleep, for a good meal. So how many of us think of that when we are in this? So we just rush through our days, activities, and we pride ourselves on multitasking, which I think is destroyed our attention and peace of mind. And so we are so fragmented, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we give out in all bits and pieces to anybody. So it's become very, as you said, transactional. So we are not like person to person. So we have to have that feeling of, okay, who are the people who have done me good? Which are the situations which I'm really, blessed, and which I'm thankful for? So keep a journal, okay? And saying thank you doesn't cost much. So whether it's when you get down from your auto rickshaw, thank the driver, you buy vegetables, thank that, person, or, come home and thank your wife for, or the children for just being there, not for doing anything. So most of the time we think that, okay, we have to thank them, then only, it's kind of like a prize.
Right.
So thanking for just being, okay, so that's what we also need to practice. And mindfulness, mindful practice. So we are most of the time full of mind, not mindful. So full of mind is when you carry everything, as you said, emotional baggage from the past, yesterday's, years before, what happened. And then we are carrying that with us. That is the aura we, surround ourselves with. How will we see the good things in life? So
Right.
when you go for a walk, early morning walk, most of us go, instead of thinking a lot about the office or about the home or children or something that has happened, or worrying about the future, anxiety about the past, how about you just focus on each and every small detail that you see during your walk, and you'll soon find your mind losing its grip over its anxiety, because the mind also can take up only few thoughts or only few tasks at a time. So if you're constantly worrying, then there's no space in your mind or in a mental energy to give to things that you really need to do. So being very mindful, okay, whatever you do, even if you're drinking a coffee, just savor it, smell it, savor it, be thankful for the good taste, enjoy it, and then you can move on to whatever you. So at that particular time, your mind is freed from that task of or whatever you are worrying about, and is in the present moment. So
Right.
again, present moment. Eckhart Tolle also talks of being in the now, okay, the now. So now we are in the present now. So if I'm sitting here and thinking of something else that happened before or going to happen, the quality of now is going to be very poor, and I'm not going to function. And so let me function best as I can now.
Right.
Okay, so that quality is what also we need to bring in during this gratitude practices, and being thankful and being grateful. And if you want, write a note or speak to a person who you wanted to thank for something but didn't. So these are all the things. And sit by yourself also and just be grateful, with the divine, that for all the good things that we have been blessed with. I'm sure all of us have been blessed with a lot of good things, but there are also certain what you call obstacles and problems, which are part and parcel of life.
Yeah.
And we worry about that, and we are unable to overcome that.
Absolutely. So, ma'am, you mentioned about gratitude and journaling it. And I'm reminded of a beautiful sentence by Srimad Madhwacharya again, where he says that, don't ask, what did you get out of praying? The very fact that you are able to pray itself is the fruit. You are able to complete your prayers to your heart's content and get that sense of fulfillment. itself is such a big thing. I mean, that itself is a privilege now for somebody to be able to sit quietly and pray. So if you have been able to do that successfully, that itself is success. It's a goal by itself. So, ma'am, one concept which is very common in the Indian scriptures is about death and afterlife. And whatever it is, our life is seen as a continuum, that we were there before, our soul existed before, as the Bhagavad Gita very clearly says, it is there today and it will continue. The journey of the soul will go on forever. So this particular aspect, how is it from a psychological perspective, one can look at it?
Yes, I think death is one of the most profound and universal and inevitable episodes all of us have gone through. And it is still shrouded in mystery because really nobody knows about, nobody has gone and come back. We do have, although, psychological studies on near death experiences. And they talk of different dimension, it could completely like, which is incomprehensible and completely like, it's something absolutely stunning. And probably from that we can have some glimpse into the afterlife. And it's also a matter of personal belief. So some of us believe, some of us don't believe. For me, I have a strong belief in afterlife because from what, and because it fits in very logically with what we go through in life. And what we have, the Hindu way of life is that, as you said, the soul is eternal. And Sri Krishna also says that just like how you cast off your clothes, that you are born again and again and again. Okay, and so that is very central to who you are and what becomes of you. And I think at some point, all of us want to know like what will happen to us afterwards. And when some death happens in to a close person in the family, it can devastate us and throw up a lot of questions and a lot of confusion. So some patients who have been in this and the grieving process, so they need a lot of psychological support. So when they come, first of all, you don't stop them from grieving because grieving is very, very important. I've seen that people who are taught not to grieve or just to, hide their tears or, put on a false smile and get on with life, it stays in their subconscious for years. So rather you deal with it as and when it occurs. So the grieving process, for some it is a few days, for some it is a few months, for some it could take an even longer time. But I think it's a slow, like, coming to a realization. And if we have this framework of life after, afterlife and the soul taking on another different life afterwards, it becomes, I think, so much easier.
Right.
But I am not, as a psychologist, authorized or, I cannot inflict my belief on that person. But I have always found that supposing a person comes with this belief, it's easier for that person to deal with death
Deal
and
with it.
grieving.
Yeah.
Yeah, otherwise it's very difficult. See, if you look at it, and also like if you talk of death and if you talk of so many obstacles and social justice, you always wonder why.
Yeah.
Okay, what have I done? And the
Why
first
me?
question is, why me?
Yeah.
What have I done? Okay, why not somebody else who I feel more deserving of, this calamity, and still nothing has happened to him or her. So then this whole framework of karma, of, afterlife, the soul, then it fits in very well and helps you to understand and empowers you, I believe, so that you can make this life a better life, so that in your next life you can reap the fruits of all the good deeds you have done here. Or if you are so evolved and spiritually enlightened, you can hope, for moksha and the final, what all of us, I think, would crave for as believers. So in whatever way, the whole concept of afterlife as we know it, I think it helps us to come to terms with death and loss. And if we look at each loss, even in our own lives, you lose something and then you're so upset about it. and then you lose either you lose a pen, or you lose a relationship, or you lose your land or jewelry. It can haunt you for years. And it's actually a preparation for death, because when you die, you're not going to take any of these, not even your closest relative. So what is the point of grieving for that? Of course, you can tell it as a philosophical or a theoretical rationale, but to make a patient understand, you have to help him through the grieving process of shock, denial, then coming to some kind of understanding, and then finally closure, and then finally, like moving on. That should be the psychologist's final goal. Moving on after this with the good memories, with whatever memories, not repressing the memories, but making them a part of your life, and how to value that, even if the person has not been extremely good to you, but still a close relative, but still you can make the person understand what was the value of that person in your life.
Right.
And that will empower. For me, therapy is all about empowering. It's not about lessening your pain, or making you a better person, or giving you good quality of life. It is empowering you to understand what is your real place on this planet, why we are. I think these questions come to all of us, right? Why were we born? What is our place on this planet? What will
Yes.
happen to us? So once you understand that, and that its onus is on you, okay, I can only guide. I mean, I think gurus also, they say that we can only guide you,
Yes.
but you have to take the journey yourself.
Absolutely.
And even Arjuna had to fight the battle himself, though
Yes.
Sri Krishna could have, resolved
Fought
it
the
within
war
a,
himself.
a fraction of a second. He could have
Yes.
resolved the war.
Yeah.
But he said, no, you have to fight the war. I can
Yes.
guide you. I will
Yes.
not take a weapon on your behalf.
Yes.
So this grieving and this, realization of loss and what it means to be human, I think that has to be understood and gone through for all of us.
Right. No, I think, ma'am, you make a very important point, which is that one has to come out of that state of grievance and give it a good closure. I think the Shastras are only giving you a philosophical guide, but they are not trying to say that sorrow it doesn't exist. So there is a line, Srimad Madhwacharya again says, Bahuchitta Jagat Bahuda Karanat Parashaktir Ananta Guna Paramaha. The world is full of very diverse people, and it'll throw up many challenges to you. But you have to remember that there is Ananta Gunaha Parama. That Parama, that supreme being, is there, who's got these infinite qualities. He's controlling this diverse world. So whatever be the change that is there, one has to deal with it. And he says, Tadalam Bahuloka Vichintanaya. Pravanam Kuru Manasam Isha Pade. So he says the Tadalam, that means this world will have Bahuloka Vichintana. Vichintana, he says. That means there are a lot of anxieties and problems you will have. He added the word vi. He could have said Chintanaya. He said Vichin. So he recognizes the importance of the challenges that we face. But you have to find out a way of making it small, because those will keep distracting you. So if you get excited every time a wave of water comes to you on a beach, and get depressed because the water is going back, you will be a nervous wreck and not enjoy the beauty of the beach. So I think, which brings me to the point about how do you look at connecting with nature as a way to heal yourself?
Correct. What a beautiful saying. I mean, it's really very meaningful. Thank you for that.
It is a shloka in the Bhagavata, actually, which tells this.
Wonderful. Yes. Yeah. And so much of depth and meaning, correct? If we get that actual meaning, then all this can just drop away, correct? It just drops. You don't have to strive or to, distance yourself from sorrow or obstacles. You just have a better understanding of it. So, in our own limited way, we psychologists try to help the patient to understand this. And I think that is where, if we incorporate spirituality and some of these, thoughts, I think it will make a huge difference to the well-being and mental status of the patient. So your question was on
Connecting
with nature.
Yeah.
So connecting with nature, I think sadly we are withdrawing from nature more and more. We are becoming more materialistic and more developed, and so it's a fact of life. today, that hardly we see children climbing trees or running on the fields. And so it's a fact of life. We cannot reverse time. Correct. And we are going in that, hurtling in that direction more and more. So I think all the more imperative we need to teach our children that we connect. So it's not like they are in the holidays, what you do instead of taking them out to even more kind of distancing yourself from nature. Use that time or the weekends or holidays just to connect with the things, simple things that you have around you. I'm sure all of us have a little small patch of land or greenery somewhere in our surroundings, or something about animals, and something about nature. And so then only children will be able to see how connected we are. See, what we are doing is that we are bringing up generations which are more disconnected, not only with the people. So now they've lost all that connection with grandparents and cousins and even sometimes parents. And now they've lost connections with the animals, with the trees, with the nature, and they grow up in a very self-centered way. It's always like I, me, myself, what I want, like that. So when you go around and you connect with nature, you don't have to have an agenda. You just have to be with nature. When you hug a tree and you feel that your heart beats like the tree, then there's nothing. You and the tree are one.
Yes.
You're one with nature. You don't have to make that effort. Correct. Yeah. So this is some of the things that we have to bring back for our own mental peace. And it's not like you have to do something very, go out of your way to do it. And not that you have to go through something very like depression or anxiety to do it. We should do it like small, inoculation. That helps you in your times of stress. Whether you're stressed or not now, but it'll always help you later.
Sure, ma'am. No, I think great advice to people, and something that people, I think, can follow easily. And we will definitely want to have more insights on this topic. And coming from you, maybe we could have a session exclusively on the topic of mindful meditation, I think, which is something which is very, very important for us. And we just have to make time for it. We just don't seem to have a choice anymore. So, ma'am, I would like to really thank you for being here, and we're not letting you go anywhere.
No,
you should go with a promise that you will come back soon.
Sure.
We have a big list of questions. So, as I said, the Ataha Madhwacharya for the youth has been working for the last 20 years. And one of the pleasures of running this organization for us is we get a lot of questions after each session. So I would really urge all the people who are in the audience watching this video to be dropping comments on this video. It is going to be published on YouTube. So please ensure that you interact. This is a very public forum. Please go ahead, share your thoughts. But if there are specific things that you would like us to address in the subsequent sessions, there is an email ID which will be provided at the end of this video. And please drop in your questions there as well. Now, specifically on the topic of journaling and something that to do with gratitude, we conducted a session recently. So for those of you who are interested in the link, please drop in. We will send you the link as well. You can watch it, where people actually tell us how to write a journal. So we conducted a session on that, and we'll be conducting more such sessions that are there. But I think there were many takeaways in today's session for me. But I think one of the very, very important points that you made was that a spiritually elevated, spiritually oriented person, I think, has thinks differently, is very different. His brain is structured differently, and the fact that he is able to lead a better life is a very, very key takeaway for all of us. So this is something that everyone should delve. And we've hardly gone through the questions that we had listed. So thanks once again for being here. Any kind of closing advice that you would like to give to our audience? We just got a number of very, very young people, students, people who are young professionals, people who are dealing with multiple challenges at the same time. Because as you rightly said, the world is getting any more peaceful than what it is today.
Yes.
So they will be facing the world with more distractions, more noise, and more challenges to deal with.
True. So, thank you very much. I just like to end with a short mindful, since you mentioned mindful meditation. It's very short and it's very simple. And I think it'll be interesting also, because when we talk theoretically, we'll not know like what exactly it is. So, I'd like all the viewers also to join in wherever you are. Just be seated comfortably. So, Sundar, you can keep your whatever things aside and make yourself as comfortable as you can. So first you have to choose a quiet place and less distraction, because our mind is not tuned to ignoring distractions. So till we get to that state, better you choose something which is less distracting. And then I prefer to close the eyes, because visually also we get very distracted, correct? So you can close your eyes and you can just be in the present moment wherever you are. And very important, be non-judgmental. Don't think, okay, how is okay, it's getting late, or it is getting hot, or I need to do this, and why am I not doing that? So your mind should be as blank as possible. It's very difficult, but then one of the ways is to just open your mind to all the sensory experiences of the now. Just open your mind to the sights, the sounds, what you are hearing around you, rather than what is going on inside you, the constant chatter in your head. Try to ignore that and try to think of or focus on, rather than concentrate. I would say just try to be aware of all the sounds going on, and slowly be aware of your breath. So breath is one of the main things that connects with our body and our mind. So in fact, interestingly, the word spirituous or spiritual in Latin comes from the word breath. So just focus on your breath. It's highly important, very vital. And be aware of your breath, and slowly be aware of your body also. So breath, body, then your thoughts, feelings, emotions. So in that order. So first the breath, then the body, then then go to the mind, your thoughts, your feelings, and be aware. So the main trick here is not to get led by or not to get into any of these, but to just be aware. And supposing you find your mind getting into any direction, pulled in by any thought, bring it instantly back to the breath. The breath is something we always have, and that should be your anchor. So if you find that slowly, which is the habit of the mind, is to drift you away in various thoughts, then bring it back. Don't be judgmental about yourself, about your mind, about your body. Just accept things the way they are. Bring it back, bring your awareness back to the breath, and practice this cycle of sitting quietly, sensory awareness, breathing, awareness of breath, awareness of your body, hands, legs, feet, and awareness of your mind, thoughts, feelings, emotions, and try to align them together. So, when you're in perfect alignment, you'll find that your thoughts don't pull you in any way. You're able to focus or be aware of the surroundings. And there you are, your mindful meditation practice. You can slowly open your eyes, and you practice this a few times a day. You'll find yourself more centered, more aware, like what we wanted, connecting with nature, connecting with what is happening around us. And this is one of the most useful practices I find for people nowadays who find their thoughts in different directions. They're not able to focus, not able to concentrate, don't have a goal, don't have any direction in life. So when you do this, immediately clarity sets in.
Amazing.
So thank you so much. I think it was a pleasure being here. And I've also learned a lot from you, Sundar. And I hope that all the viewers also will benefit from this session. Thank you very much. Namaskaram.
Namaste.